All right, so if you don't know already, Redliner came out a few days ago. I want to say around a week now, so this is very early for a tutorial. There's already some tutorials on Redliner movement as it is, but I figured because some people are missing some things out or like half explaining movement techniques, I might as well make my own, at least for what I know as of now, which I'm pretty certain I know quite a bit, or at least enough. So yeah, things could change later on. There could be more techniques that get found. I doubt it. From what I know, this is pretty polished for a game, so I don't think anything will change unless there's been an update. So if it's outdated, blame current me instead of future me. First thing I recommend before you even get into practicing movement is to go into your gameplay settings and change your wall run input to hold. Unless you really are used to toggle, I would almost always recommend setting this to hold, because that way you can just tap to wall run instead of having to, toggle it and hit it twice. You can also, or no, you should have strafe assist on it as well. That just makes it much easier to strafe instead of having to constantly be pressing A and D, which you'll figure out later on is not really possible when you're chaining a lot of movements. Other than that, you might want to have 90 or 100 FOV. I would say 90 is a good sweet spot. First thing I'll cover is just the basics of movement. So I guess let's start with dash first. Dashing is directional. And you have in the bottom left corner, you have 3 dashes, or it can build up to 3, and it will charge after about a second or half a second. Yeah, about a second. The important thing to notice about this is you can dash up high enough where you can do a ground slam. You can look down and back dash to go up, or you can look up and back dash. I think looking down is better. Other than that, there's only like one kind of important thing to mention. It's not even that useful. When you dash on the floor, you have a consistent 105 units, which is more than if you were to dash in the air. So dashing is very useful. You won't have to worry about running out of spamming it, because it's, well, you can stack up to 3 and its cooldown is really quick. Your next really useful movement mechanic is going to be your slide. I almost always recommend using it, especially because of its special M1. Special M1 being the wide slash. When you use the wide slash, it eats up 2 of your dashes, which may sound bad, but honestly it isn't. Your dashes come back really fast, and not to mention you still retain 1 extra. I would almost always recommend sliding unless you need to wall jump. Even in the air, especially on the ground while clashing, one of the main reasons why I do more instability when I'm winning clashes is because of my wide slash. So next up is grapple, which is your best friend. You're going to be using the grapple the most out of every other movement option. It's pretty simple on how it works. In order to get the most amount of speed, you're going to want the most amount of tension. I find sometimes it's better to just tap grapple rather than to hold it. That way you can get the most out of speed. You want to let go of your right click basically as soon as you can. The only other important thing to mention about grappling is that you have a down slam. If you look straight down when you're in the air, you should see a yellow highlight around your cursor. That indicates that you can do a down slam or a ground slam. This is easily an incredibly useful ability, and later on you'll see how you can use it in movement. Another movement mechanic that you're not really going to use a whole lot, aside from if you're on like a big open map or if you're trying to run around, is wall running. Wall running, like I said, you might want to set the setting to hold. That way you just have to tap spacebar in order to grab onto it and jump. It's not like, there's not really a super good speed advantage to it. It's one of those things that you just kind of chain it off your already good momentum. And in general, it keeps you in the air longer. So if you plan to scout for a down slam, then you're really going to want to use wall running a lot. Now, some important things to mention are the general mechanics. There's a full Google Doc that I'll probably leave in the description that explains everything in this game. But some of the mechanics that you really need to know, and I think the tutorial even mentioned it, is clashing. Clashing is primarily what you're going to be doing aside from shooting your gun. How clashing works is if you're moving slower than the other person, you will lose more instability. And if you're moving faster, you will deal more instability than you've gained. If it wasn't already self-explanatory, when you do a wide slash, if you win a clash, you do more instability. If you win enough clashes, the enemy will go into an instability phase where they can't M1 or parry. So in other words, this game rewards fast movement. If you are M1ing someone and you're not hitting them and you're slower than them, you're almost always going to lose instability. And if you lose enough instability, well, you're wide open for getting shot or killed. So the first and most important technique you want to learn is BDGs. Most simple way to describe how to do a BDG is to do a backdash, then jump, and then grapple after you jump. If you're trying to get used to the timing, what you should do is just backdash and then grapple, and then once you get used to that, implement a jump immediately after. A regular BDG will get you around 120 units even if you're at 0 speed. If you do it perfectly, you can get up to 140. I find in order to get it perfectly, you need to be touching the floor when you dash, and then you need to jump shortly after and grapple, basically just tapping right click. I find the faster you can do a BDG after you touch the floor, the more speed you can get. You can do BDGs in the air, but you're not going to get as much speed as if you were on the floor. So if you really need to, it's not going to be terrible. You might get up to 120 units, but again, being on the floor is significantly better for speed. I heavily stress getting used to just a regular BDG and then getting so fast with it that you can do it in the middle of a B-hop. BDG is one of the most useful, if not the best strat in the game, at least for ground movement. So becoming very familiar with it will be extremely beneficial. Next movement technique that you're going to want to learn, especially if you want to win clashes, is to literally just turn around and then grapple the floor immediately. After 2 to 3 grapples, you'll notice that your grapple is going to be on cooldown. It's quite annoying. You have to get used to stalling it, but if you can get used to the timing, it's not too terrible. Another thing to note is that when you're turning around, you don't want to always hold W. That way you're going to lose all your speed. What you should do is you should let go of W when you're turning and then repress W when you're grappling back. If you're really comfortable with hitting fast BDGs, what you can do instead of just doing a regular grapple is just turning around and then doing a BDG for each one. It'll allow you to maintain more speed and maybe even gain more speed. I find just using them both whenever you feel fit is significantly better, but it's up to you. It also may help catch opponents off guard, especially if you do 2 of them. That's kind of all the important ground movement tips. Anything else is like if you tap dash as you're landing while B-hopping, you can progressively gain speed. The highest I was able to get was like 260, I think, or 250. But you can see it takes a little bit of time to wind up, so you need to chain it quite a bit. I find if you literally get a short hop for each B-hop, then that's probably the perfect pace. It's not something you're going to actively use, especially in 1v1s, but it's just something important to know. This is way more niche and kind of difficult to pull off, but what you can do is if you're going in a single direction, even at a fast pace, when you're about to land on the floor, if you hit S and then control immediately at the same time, you can completely change all your movement into the opposite direction. It's not much better than if you were to just grapple and return, but if you really want to catch someone off guard, that can be really unexpected. I've seen it been useful like a handful of times. I'm sure if I probably used it more, then I would have gotten more usage out of it, but it's something to note nonetheless. All right, now for all the air movement. The first and most important one that you want to learn is ground slam canceling, or GSCs. All you do is you go down for a ground slam, and the second you're about to hit the floor, hit control. You can even do it a little bit early or late. It's pretty reliable. It will give you at least 120 units. So if you are in the air and you hit a really bad grapple, it's super easy to gain back speed. Or if you just want to get down on the floor faster without wasting a ground slam, it's really excellent. It's something that you can spam a lot and you can get away with. Sometimes you can slam and get the boost as well, so you get the best of both worlds, but it's pretty rare and I've only managed to hit it a few times. Another thing you can note is that if you do a back dash upwards or a front dash and you can slam immediately after into the floor, it's pretty good to catch people off guard if you're about to clash. Some people say you should dash twice, but I think that's way too much time, and honestly you can still do it with just one dash. You just have to wait a little bit when you're in the air. Something that I do not see people use enough is ground slamming. It is so easy to hit a ground slam and to punish people, especially if they're going for a clash. You can either dash in the air and do it, or you can just wall run and quickly use it. I personally enjoy wall running, especially if they anticipate me to grapple anyways. Doing the backdash in the air just slows down all your movement, especially if you're about to land a ground slam and you don't end up getting a boost. I would say just play Battleground, and once you get used to it, it'll just be muscle memory. For what it's worth, if you have no speed and you're in the air and you were to grapple onto a wall, you can wall jump and you would get basically a guaranteed free 130 units, which is pretty fast, all things considered. It's way better than just awkwardly falling, especially if you don't have the opportunity to ground slam cancel. One thing I should mention is you can also do the same reverse grappling on walls. So if you want to just change directions while wall hopping and kind of remain in the air, you can do the exact same thing on the ground, just, well, in the air. I also forgot to mention that you can also completely redirect all your momentum the opposite direction by wall running. If you just hold S as you're about to wall run, then it completely redirects all your momentum backwards. It's pretty easy to land. The only downside is, well, you have to be next to a wall. Now, first thing I'm going to say is sliding is easily one of the most important things in this game. I'd actually go as far to consider it's one of the only things that helps me win so many clashes. Once you get used to regular BDGs and you've got that down to a science, you should immediately start getting used to sliding right after you use it. I don't think sliding actually helps you maintain momentum, but it's easily so much better to M1 while sliding than to not. Easily your most important and spammable techniques are going to be your BDGs and your ground slam cancels. They're super versatile if you want to just get around the map fast. One's for ground, the other one's for being in the air. And after that, you can just kind of chain wall jumps and other stuff to keep your momentum going. The most important thing, especially for 1v1s, is going to be your grappling. If you can get used to doing this fast and flicking around perfectly, you're going to have a huge advantage. There's been so many times where I'll simply win a clash because I'm reacting faster than they are, or at least turning around faster than them. Sometimes I can turn around as I hit them, and I can immediately catch up to them if they're going the opposite direction. I would say if you're trying to get used to movement, the first thing you should do is just go in Battlegrounds and then run around the glitch map and just practice wall jumping, ground slam canceling, and BDGs if you're slow. Eventually you'll get to a point where being on 0 speed borderline means nothing to you. You can just immediately get up to at least 120 units without any concern, even if you're in the air or if you're on the floor or just got parried by someone. After that, I would say it's just about getting used to using that movement in fights. Once you get used to clashing against people, I highly recommend getting used to ground slamming in the middle of a fight. It is absurdly powerful if you can land it, and it will destroy their instability if they don't parry it. And half the time people are not used to parrying it and don't even expect it to come. To show how useful ground slamming is, you can basically hit combos with it, and if the opponent is slow reacting or has not been used to being flung in the air, it's very punishable. So for example, one thing you can do is you can just ground slam into an M1 and then just grapple up as you shoot them, and then when you reach up to them, you can just M1 again. Here's what that would look like in slow motion. If you play this game enough, you'll probably realize that you borderline have very little end lag on stuff like your grapple and your gun. You can grapple while you have your gun out, and vice versa. Alright, this is about a month after I originally edited and recorded the video. There was supposed to be a second half to the video where I actually went into fights and explained the tips I was using in my thought process, but that ended up getting scrapped. If you still want me to make that video, or maybe a second half to a tutorial to explain more things, then just let me know in the comments. I do plan on making a montage, potentially. It would take some time to make it, but it's definitely on the table. Anyways, that's about all I have to say. If this video helped at all or you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you didn't, don't. If Redliner is a game you guys want to see me do more videos on, then let me know. Anyways, I hope this video helped and hope you guys have a great time.